The other day I was speaking with a grandmother who was here at Easter with her granddaughters, and during the Mass she was sharing that her granddaughters were having a serious conversation about the meaning of these symbols behind me on the wall. You probably noticed these symbols before. It looks like a P with an X through it. So they were arguing back and forth very seriously. What is the meaning of these? And then finally one blurts out, "I know what it is. I'll tell you what it means. It means no parking." So we've all maybe had this question, what is the meaning of these symbols? And of course, symbols can mean different things. And one meaning that people like to give is that we have a P and an X. So this is the first letter of pax, peace in Latin, right? Pax, P-A-X. And that certainly is one meaning of these symbols, but it has a deeper meaning. And in fact, the letters that we see in front of us are in Greek. This symbol is called the Chi Rho symbol. And it's one of the most ancient symbols in all Christianity. For the first several hundred years of the Christian church, Christians never, of course, depicted the cross or the crucifix because people were still being crucified. It would be like kind of walking around today with an electric chair or something like that around your neck. People just wouldn't do it because people were still being put to death before the time of Constantine. So this symbol, the Chi Rho symbol, is actually in Greek the first two letters of the name Christus. What looks like an X is a chi, which is like the K sound in English, and what looks like an R is the rho, which looks like a P, is the rho, which makes the R sound in Greek. So we have the first two letters of Christus, Christ. And this symbol is found all over. When you go to Rome, for example, when you visit the catacombs where the early Christians buried their dead, they would make this Chi Rho symbol close by to where their beloved brothers, sisters, and family members were buried. And this Chi Rho symbol was for them a source of hope in the resurrection of Jesus. It was a reminder for them that as they buried their dead, they would make this symbol there, believing firmly that just as Jesus was risen from the dead, so too would their family members, so too would they be risen from the dead one day. In the gospel today, of course, we continue our reflection on the resurrection of Jesus and what it means for us. In today's gospel, in particular from Luke's gospel, there is a focus on the reality of the resurrection of the body, the fact that Jesus rose from the dead, but rose with his body. And Luke in his gospel goes through extreme lengths to try to make this point. So today's gospel picks up on the road to Emmaus story, where those two followers of Jesus meet Christ ultimately in the breaking of the bread. And here Jesus encounters a larger group of disciples. And if you notice in the gospel, Jesus repeats several times, "I am not a ghost." He says, "I am not a ghost. Touch my body. I am not a ghost. Give me some food to eat. Can a ghost eat food as I'm doing here and now?" So Jesus wants to, and Luke is very clear to show this, that Jesus is alive still, but he has his body. He's not a ghost. And this would be very important for the audience that Luke would have been writing. Matthew's gospel, we think, was probably written towards more a Jewish audience, Jewish community people who had come to believe in Jesus. Luke, however, is written more to a Greco-Roman audience. Christians, followers of Jesus, those who are interested in Christ, but those who were not raised in kind of a Jewish background in Israel. And for this audience, they would be very familiar with different Greek and Roman myths about appearances of God, manifestations of God or of angels who would appear to people but would not have a body. And so what Luke is doing in this gospel is making it clear, look, Jesus is risen from the dead, he is still alive, but don't confuse Jesus with some Greek myth, with some Roman myth. Jesus is altogether different. He's risen, and he's risen with his body. This, of course, has important kind of follow-throughs for us in our faith life, that the body is something very important for us, that Christians, that people cannot exist without their body. Bodies are really integral to what it means to be a human being. And sometimes we can also get into this way of thinking that was common at Luke's time, that maybe the mind or the consciousness is what is most important. As long as we have our mind, that's all we really need. Some years ago, there was a movie released. You might have seen it. It's called Get Out. It's a horror movie, so don't go watching it unless you like horror movies. I'm going to say some spoilers, but it's been out, I think, 10 years, so it's not my fault at this point. But this movie is interesting in that it talks about how people are able to kind of transport their mind or their consciousness into the bodies of other people. And along the way, it makes some very important social commentaries. But we see in this idea that as long as the mind or the mind continues, then that's all it means to be a human being. Any body is important, really. The body is sort of like just a machine that carries the mind throughout life. This, of course, is not what we believe as Christians. A foundational faith for us is the incarnation, that God in Jesus Christ became a human being. Jesus had a real body, and Jesus, even after his death and resurrection, continued to have this body. And this, of course, is an important lesson for us, that we as human beings and followers of Jesus are embodied beings. It is through our body that we show love, care, kindness, closeness to other people. It is through our bodies, really, that we exercise our life as discipleship. It's through them that we show this kindness and closeness to others. This, of course, is an important reminder for us, as well as being a message of hope. The resurrection of Jesus, of course, gives us hope that those people we know have passed away will one day rise again. But it also teaches us the importance of being in our bodies. And we could say, being close to people, being present to people. Social media and other kinds of media, of course, are very helpful, but at times they cause us to withdraw from other people. There's all kinds of activities that can do this. We can withdraw from others. But if you think about it, being close, being present to other people in our bodies is so important. Think, for example, of a family meal, being close to others there, to sharing communion, sharing community. This is so important to being a human being and also being a follower of Jesus. We see in the gospel that Jesus shares a meal with his disciples, and he does this many times. Frequently, after his resurrection, he eats with his followers. And this isn't just because he was hungry. That's an important part of eating. But meals, of course, are a time of communion, of communication, being close to others. We can think as well, for example, of people who are suffering, maybe a friend or family member. It's an important thing, of course, maybe to send them a text, to pick up the phone and call them. But if we are able, of course, it's something altogether different to be close to that person, maybe at the bedside of a person in hospital, to hold their hand, to be physically present to them in our body. Another example we can think of is maybe a friend or family member needs help, needs assistance. If we are able to be present, to serve them, to help them, to assist them, really can make all the difference. So the gospel today, with its focus on Jesus being risen with his body, gives us hope, of course, in the future resurrection of the dead, but also teaches us the importance of our own bodies. It is through our bodies that we show closeness, care, and charity to those around us. Of course, in every Mass, we hear during the words of consecration the words of Jesus that say, "This is my body given over for you. This is my body given over for you." When we hear these words of consecration, we can make them our own as well. As followers of Christ, we're reminded that our bodies too are to become gifts for others in service and in kindness. We give thanks today then for this great message of hope in the resurrection, and we remind ourselves of the importance of following Christ with our whole being, our mind, our hearts, but also our bodies as well, to show that kindness, closeness, and charity to those around us.